The apartment was small, just big enough for two young women, still learning how to build a life that felt like their own. It sat on the third floor of an old brick building where the hallway always smelled faintly of rain and coffee. Lena had chosen it for the light, for the way it fell through the curtains in the morning, soft and golden, warming the cracked tiles by the kitchen counter. She said it reminded her of theater stages before the audience arrived, quiet and waiting. Harper hadn't cared about the light. She chose it because it was cheap and close to the photography studio where she worked part-time. She said she liked how the place looked from the outside, like a secret hidden between taller buildings. When they moved in, their differences filled the space as much as their belongings did. Lena's side of the living room was neat, every cable coiled, every sketch pinned in clean rows above her desk. Her lamp glowed warm and steady through the night as she worked on lighting designs for student plays. She was precise, patient, and quiet, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke. Her hair was always tied back loosely, strands slipping down to frame a face that seemed made for soft concentration. Harper lived in the same space like it was a canvas she could never stop painting. Polaroid photos covered her wall in crooked lines, flashes of faces and streets and cups of coffee. A half-unzipped camera bag sat on the couch, film rolls spilling beside it. She was always moving, always humming some tune she never finished. There were nights she came home from late shoots smelling of espresso and rain, dropping her boots at the door and laughing about something no one else found funny. Lena had rules for everything. Shoes aligned by the mat. Dishes washed before bed. Lights off when the sun came up. Harper broke all of them without meaning to. She left mugs half full of coffee on the windowsill. She draped her jackets over the chairs. Yet, somehow, Lena never truly complained. She just sighed, rearranged, and let the rhythm continue. Their mornings began differently, but always crossed. Lena rose first, padding barefoot to the kettle, measuring water precisely, stirring her tea until the swirl faded. Harper would stumble in minutes later, hair messy, eyes half closed, wearing one of Lena's shirts she had borrowed without asking. She brewed coffee strong enough to wake the entire building, then leaned against the counter scrolling through photos on her phone. They rarely spoke before noon, but the silence wasn't empty. It was familiar, like background music they had both learned to live with. Sometimes Lena watched Harper through the reflection in the kitchen window, the way light hit her freckles, the small smile she gave when she captured a perfect frame in her mind. Harper noticed once and teased her about it, saying she looked like she was studying a painting. Lena only smiled and said she studied light, not people. Harper had grinned, answering, "Then I guess I'm just made of light," before stealing a strawberry from Lena's breakfast bowl. The apartment began to carry the echo of their routines. The click of Harper's camera shutter mixed with the rustle of Lena's script pages. The scent of cinnamon rolls from the cafe clung to Harper's jacket, blending with the faint lavender from Lena's hand cream. At night, the sound of water running in the sink often overlapped with music from Harper's headphones leaking through the thin walls. Somehow, the chaos settled into balance. They learned to move around each other without colliding. Lena adjusted the height of her lamp so it wouldn't glare into Harper's camera lens. Harper learned not to open the curtains while Lena was testing light gels. The boundaries between them became invisible, drawn and redrawn by small gestures. It was domestic, almost ordinary, yet there was something in it neither wanted to name. Once, during a late-night storm, the wind rattled the windows and the power flickered. Harper lit candles, laughing as wax dripped on her fingers. Lena sat by the table, adjusting her dim flashlight to keep working on her project. Harper took a picture of her right then, saying, "You look like you belong in a movie." Lena frowned, asking her to delete it. Harper didn't. When weekends came, they took turns cooking. Harper made pancakes too thick to flip. Lena made soups that simmered all afternoon. They ate by the window, sharing quiet jokes and stories about professors they both disliked. The city outside kept moving, but inside, the world slowed down to their pace. Over time, the apartment began to reflect them both. There was a row of colored gels next to a jar of old camera lenses. A potted fern by the window that Harper rescued from a film set now leaned toward Lena's desk lamp. Their shared bookshelf grew uneven photography magazines beside lighting manuals, novels tucked between rolls of film. The place looked mismatched, but alive. Lena often caught herself listening to Harper's laughter before realizing she was smiling too. It annoyed her in a way she didn't understand. Harper's presence filled rooms without effort, while Lena's quietness faded easily. Yet Harper never made her feel small. If anything, she seemed to notice every subtle thing Lena did: the new placement of a lamp, the fresh tape on the light switch, the playlist that changed every week. One evening, Harper printed a new photograph and pinned it above the sink. It was the city skyline at sunset, golden clouds stretched over glass buildings. Beneath it, in small handwriting, she had written, "For the light you showed me." Lena asked what it meant. Harper shrugged, said, "You see light where I see shadows. It's kind of contagious." From then on, something shifted quietly between them. Their jokes carried pauses. Their eyes met longer than before. Lena found herself noticing details she used to ignore: the sound of Harper's laughter from the shower, the way her wrist curved when she adjusted the camera focus, the faint sugar scent from her favorite coffee syrup. She scolded herself for paying attention, but attention was already a habit. By winter, the apartment felt smaller, warmer, more filled with shared air. The walls had seen them through exhaustion, laughter, and silent dinners. Sometimes, when Harper wasn't home, Lena would glance at the empty couch and feel a strange tug in her chest, a quiet missing that had no name yet. She told herself it was just the absence of noise, but the truth lingered under every thought. They had started as strangers chasing cheap rent. Now they were something else, though neither had the courage to define it. Each day they moved closer without realizing. Every shared glance, every casual brush of shoulders, built something delicate, suspended between comfort and curiosity. Lena told herself she was content, that she preferred silence and control. But late at night, when Harper's light still glowed under her door, she caught herself listening to the faint clicks of her camera and the quiet laughter that followed. It felt like waiting for a song to start, one she didn't yet know the melody of. The city outside carried on, indifferent, while inside that small apartment, two lives began to sync in subtle rhythm. The light that drew Lena in now fell across Harper's photographs. The noise Harper brought now softened into harmony. Neither of them said it out loud, but they both felt a sense that something unnamed was growing in the spaces between words, building quietly like light behind a curtain, waiting to be seen. It started on a Thursday night, the kind of night that smelled like warm pizza and rain through the half-open window. The city hummed outside, neon lights flickering on wet pavement, and their small apartment glowed in soft orange from the kitchen lamp. Harper sat cross-legged on the floor with a beer in hand, hair pulled into a messy bun, cheeks flushed from laughter. Lena sat opposite her, trying to focus on folding receipts for her project, though her attention kept drifting toward Harper's easy grin. They had ordered too much food, eaten half, and left the rest cooling on the counter. The air was lazy, thick with that after-dinner comfort when conversation runs without purpose. Harper had been showing Lena her latest photos, people dancing under streetlights, faces blurred from movement, everything soaked in color. Lena smiled, saying how alive the images looked. Harper leaned back, tilting her head, her eyes catching the light. "Maybe that's why I take them," she said, swirling her drink. "Because life feels more real when it's caught by accident." Lena nodded, thinking how Harper's words always carried a strange softness beneath their boldness. They sat quietly for a while, listening to the rain pick up against the glass. The sound filled the pauses they didn't know how to break. Harper finished her beer, reached for another, and suddenly her tone shifted, half curious, half teasing. "What do girls even taste like?" she asked. The question landed like a ripple spreading through still water. Lena froze mid-motion, the crumpled paper in her hand forgotten. For a moment, she thought she had misheard. Her eyes lifted slowly, meeting Harper's. There was no smirk, only an open expression, as if she had just asked about the weather. "What?" Lena managed to say, her voice thinner than she intended. Harper shrugged, her laugh soft but genuine. "You know, everyone talks about it like some secret. I've kissed guys, sure, but girls I've always wondered." Lena's pulse thudded somewhere in her throat. She wanted to say something clever, something that would turn it back into a joke, but nothing came. Instead, she whispered, "You're asking the wrong person." Harper tilted her head. "You mean you've never?" Lena shook her head before she could finish. "No." The word hung there between them, simple and sharp. The room suddenly felt smaller. The hum of the fridge grew louder, the air heavier. Harper leaned back against the couch, her grin faltering just enough to reveal uncertainty. "I didn't mean anything by it," she said quietly, glancing down at her beer. "I was just curious." "I know," Lena replied, too fast, too defensive. Her fingers twisted the hem of her shirt, a nervous habit she thought she'd outgrown. They didn't speak for several minutes. The rain thickened into a steady rhythm outside, tapping the window like a heartbeat. Harper stood and began gathering the empty bottles, moving slower than usual. Lena followed her with her eyes, taking in the way her shoulders moved, the quiet focus in her gestures. There was nothing flirtatious about it, yet something inside Lena shifted. When Harper passed her on the way to the kitchen, their arms brushed lightly. The touch was accidental, but it felt electric, as if the question had changed the air itself. Harper disappeared into the kitchen, and Lena stayed where she was, listening to the clinking of glass, the running tap, the faint hum of Harper's voice as she hummed a tune she didn't finish. Lena stood, walked to the counter, and started helping without a word. They worked in silence. The sound of water and plates filled the space. Harper glanced up once, eyes searching, but Lena kept her gaze low. Finally, Harper broke the quiet. "You're being weird," she said softly. Lena gave a small laugh that didn't sound like her. "Maybe because you asked a weird question." Harper smiled, relief flickering across her face. "Fair enough." For a moment, it seemed like they could slip back into normal. But the ease didn't return completely. Beneath the casual laughter, a thread of tension hummed, invisible yet constant. That night, Lena lay awake long after Harper had gone to her room. The sound of raindrops against the glass blended with the faint music playing through the wall. She stared at the ceiling, replaying Harper's words in her mind. It wasn't the question itself that lingered, but the tone. It hadn't sounded like a joke. It had sounded like curiosity wrapped in wonder, as if Harper wasn't asking for knowledge but permission. Lena told herself she was overthinking. Harper said things like that all the time, without filter, without malice. She was the kind of person who threw questions into the air just to see what shape they took when they fell back down. But this one felt different. It wasn't about girls in general. It felt like it was about her. The following morning, they moved through their routines as if nothing had happened. Harper poured coffee, humming, while Lena made tea, careful not to meet her eyes. Their words were light, their smiles practiced. Yet each pause between sentences felt longer than usual. The apartment seemed to hold its breath with them. Over the next few days, the question kept echoing. Not out loud, but in the subtle moments where silence stretched too long. When Harper brushed past her in the hallway, Lena felt her stomach twist. When their hands almost touched reaching for the same mug, she pulled back too quickly. Harper noticed, of course. She always noticed. One evening, Lena was working on a lighting mock-up, soft blue gels glowing across her desk. Harper came in holding a small plate of cupcakes from her cafe. She set them down with a grin. "Peace offering," she said. "I think I made things awkward." Lena wanted to deny it, to say it was fine, but honesty slipped out instead. "You did." Harper bit her lip, uncertain. "Then let me fix it." "How?" "By asking something even weirder." Lena sighed, half amused, half afraid. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" "Not really," Harper admitted, stepping closer. "But maybe that's the point." Her tone wasn't teasing anymore. The playfulness had softened into something quieter. She reached for one of the cupcakes and broke it in half, handing a piece to Lena. "Taste this," she said. Lena hesitated, then took a bite. The sweetness hit first, followed by a tang of lemon. Harper watched her reaction carefully, her eyes lingering too long. "Good. It's fine," Lena murmured, her voice barely steady. "See," Harper said, smiling faintly, "you explain things like that, and it makes me want to know how everything else tastes too." Lena looked up sharply, but Harper was already walking toward the couch, pretending to scroll through her phone. The moment passed, but the tension deepened. Later, when Lena went to clean the counter, she found a small smudge of frosting on her lip, left from the bite. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed at the thought of Harper noticing. But Harper already had. From across the room, she spoke without looking up. "You missed a spot." Their eyes met. Harper's gaze didn't waver. Slowly, she walked over, lifted her thumb, and gently brushed the corner of Lena's mouth. The touch was brief, featherlight, but it sent a tremor through her. Neither said a word. The world seemed to narrow to that single motion, to the warmth that lingered long after Harper turned away. When Harper finally went to her room, the door closed softly, but the quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It pulsed, alive, echoing the question that had started it all. Lena stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the dim glow of the streetlight through the curtain. The air smelled faintly of sugar and rain. She pressed her hand to her lips, not because of the frosting, but because of the touch that had erased it. She told herself again that it meant nothing, that Harper was impulsive, that it was just her way of being playful. But deep down, she knew better. Something had shifted, too subtle to name, too powerful to undo. The line between them had blurred, and the next time Harper asked a question like that, Lena wasn't sure she would want to avoid the answer. The question never disappeared, it simply changed shape. It lived quietly in the pauses, in the glances that lasted a breath too long, in the way Harper sometimes smiled before catching herself. Lena tried to bury it under work, under light and color and endless drafts of stage designs, but it waited for her in every shared silence. By the end of the week, their routines had lost their rhythm. Mornings were quicker, breakfast shorter, words clipped at the edges. Harper left earlier for her shifts at the cafe, always rushing out with her camera slung across her shoulder. Lena stayed behind, pretending to focus on her laptop, though she barely saw the screen. The empty apartment felt too still without Harper's careless noise. When Harper came home late, the smell of roasted beans and rain followed her in. She often looked exhausted but alive, her eyes still bright from laughter she hadn't shared with Lena. She would drop her bag, offer a tired wave, and vanish into her room before conversation could begin. The distance wasn't spoken about, but it spread anyway, invisible yet thick enough to feel. One evening, Lena stayed late at the theater studio, finalizing her lighting setup. When she returned, the apartment was filled with voices. Harper's laugh echoed from the living room, lighter and louder than it had been in days. Another woman sat on the couch beside her, holding a mug of tea, flipping through a photo book. She was tall, confident, and unfamiliar. "Hey," Harper said cheerfully when Lena appeared at the door. "This is Tess. We work together." She wanted to see the new project. Tess smiled politely, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Harper's photos are amazing," she said, her tone smooth, practiced. Lena nodded stiffly, forcing a smile. "I know. She's good." Harper grinned, oblivious to the tension. "She helped me pick the right shots for the gallery sub next week." Lena mumbled something vague and went to the kitchen, pretending to wash an already clean glass. She could hear their laughter through the wall, the kind of easy warmth that used to belong to her. She didn't understand why her chest felt heavy, why her fingers trembled slightly as she set the glass down. By the time Tess left, the apartment had gone quiet again. Harper lingered by the window, phone in hand, smiling faintly as she typed something. Lena finally spoke, her voice low. "She seems nice." She is, Harper said without looking up. You've been spending a lot of time with her. Harper glanced over, brows lifting. We're working on something together. Why? No reason, Lena replied too quickly. Harper studied her for a moment, then laughed softly. You sound jealous. The word hit harder than Lena expected. I'm not, she said, maybe too fast, maybe too defensive. Okay, Harper said, holding up her hands. Didn't mean anything by it. But the spark had already caught. Lena felt the flush creeping up her neck, the heat of embarrassment mixing with something sharper. She wanted to end the conversation, but Harper's expression lingered in her mind long after they both went to bed. In the days that followed, their easy silence turned brittle. When Harper showed her new photos, Lena's compliments came out mechanical. When Lena adjusted the lighting in her corner, Harper pretended not to notice. They moved around each other like strangers who still knew too much. It should have passed, but it didn't. The tension only deepened when Lena met Tess again at a campus cafe. Tess waved first, friendly, unaware of the undercurrent. She chatted about Harper's exhibit, about their shared plans. Lena smiled, asked polite questions, then left before her tea cooled. Her reflection in the glass door looked foreign, like someone trying too hard not to care. That night, Harper returned home humming. She found Lena at the table, working, pencil tapping against her notebook. You talked to Tess today, Harper said casually. She mentioned it? Yeah, Harper replied, leaning against the counter. She said you seemed distant. Maybe because I was, Lena said flatly. Harper's tone softened. You don't have to like her. I get that. It's not about liking her. Then what is it about? Lena looked up, the words catching in her throat. For a moment, she almost said it. Almost told Harper that she hated how easily she smiled for someone else. That every time she laughed like that, Lena's chest twisted. But instead, she said quietly, forget it. Harper didn't push, but her eyes stayed on her, searching. When Lena turned away, Harper sighed, picked up her camera, and disappeared into her room again. The distance became routine. It lingered in the quiet clink of dishes, in the faint echo of a door closing. Lena began leaving her work materials at the studio to avoid coming home too early. Harper filled the space with new company, new laughter, new distractions. Yet every time Harper's voice drifted through the walls, Lena still listened. Weeks passed, though time felt strange inside that apartment. One evening, the city outside was wrapped in fog, and the world seemed quieter than usual. Lena sat by the window sketching. Harper entered with her camera in hand, wearing a scarf that wasn't hers. Nice scarf, Lena said before she could stop herself. Tess made it, Harper replied, smiling. She's learning to knit. Lena's hand stilled over her sketch pad. Of course she is. Harper caught the tone. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. No, say it. Lena closed her notebook slowly. It means you talk about her like she's your new favorite muse. Harper frowned. You're being ridiculous. Am I? Yes, Harper snapped, then exhaled sharply. She's just a friend, Lena. Right, Lena said, voice low. Because you call all your friends at midnight and wear their scarves. Harper blinked, caught off guard. You were awake? Lena didn't answer. The silence stretched until Harper dropped her camera bag on the couch. You're jealous, she said again, but this time it wasn't teasing. Maybe I am, Lena whispered, surprising them both. Maybe that's the problem. Harper froze, the air thickening around them. Why? She asked softly. Lena's throat tightened. Because you make it impossible not to be. For a long time, neither spoke. The fog outside pressed against the window like another wall. Harper took a small step forward, her voice unsteady now. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't, Lena said, though the words sounded like a lie. I just didn't expect to feel this way. Harper's gaze softened, but she didn't move closer. The distance between them was no longer just emotional. It was a physical line neither dared to cross. The following day, Harper left before dawn. Lena woke to the quiet hum of her phone on the table, a short message glowing on the screen. staying at Tessa's to edit the photos. Don't wait up. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had. Lena moved through it like a shadow, touching things that still carried Harper's traces. The scarf on the chair. The half-empty bottle of perfume. The faint outline of a photograph that had fallen behind the bookshelf. She found it and turned it over. It was a shot of their kitchen, both of them blurred in motion, laughing, unaware of the camera. That night, she couldn't work. The city lights painted gold across the walls, but nothing looked the same. When Harper finally returned near midnight, Lena was still awake. She didn't turn on the lights. She just said quietly, "Did you have fun?" Harper hesitated by the door. "We finished early," she said softly. She went home. Lena stood, crossed her arms. "You could have told me. I didn't think you'd care. Then you don't know me at all." Harper winced. "Maybe I don't anymore." The words landed like a small break inside something fragile. Lena looked away, blinking hard. "Maybe that's for the best." Harper wanted to reply, but nothing felt right. The tension had twisted too tightly, the silence too deep. She walked past Lena, stopping at her door. For a second, she turned back, her expression conflicted. "For what it's worth," she whispered, "it wasn't her I wanted to laugh with." The door closed softly behind her. Lena stood alone, the echo of that sentence hanging in the air. It didn't fix anything, but it sparked something raw and unspoken. The jealousy, the hurt, the strange pull between them, it was all tangled now, impossible to separate. Outside, the fog lifted, revealing the faint shimmer of city lights. Inside, the tension remained, alive and flickering, waiting for whatever came next. The storm arrived without warning. The sky cracked open in the evening and rain poured like it had been waiting all week. Wind rushed through the narrow street below, rattling the windows, shaking the potted herbs on the sill. Inside the apartment, the lights flickered once, twice, then went out completely. The silence that followed felt strange, heavy, alive. Lena stood by her desk, blinking into the darkness. The only light came from the faint orange glow of the city outside, bending through the curtains. She reached for her phone, but the battery was nearly dead. Somewhere in the kitchen, she heard Harper moving, opening drawers, muttering softly under her breath. A faint spark, then the warm flame of a candle appeared, throwing trembling shadows across the walls. Harper carried it into the living room, her hair sticking to her cheeks from the humidity, her sweatshirt hanging loose. "Looks like we lost power," she said, voice calm but quiet. "I can see that," Lena answered, trying to sound composed, though her pulse quickened. They stood there, uncertain. The air smelled like rain and melted wax. The candle flickered between them, and every shift of flame seemed to reshape Harper's face. For a moment, neither spoke. It was strange how silence could grow louder than thunder. Then Harper smiled faintly, setting the candle on the table. "I was about to bake," she said. "Guess that's not happening now." "You were baking?" Lena asked, surprised. "Yeah, something simple. Lemon tarts. Without power?" "I started before the storm." "They're half-baked," Harper said with a shrug, moving to the counter. "Which makes them tragic, like me." Lena couldn't help but laugh, soft but real. Harper turned at the sound, her smile deepening in the dim light. "There it is," she whispered. "What?" "That laugh. You haven't used it in weeks." Lena looked away, the warmth in her chest both pleasant and unsettling. She followed Harper to the kitchen. The tray sat on the counter, the crusts pale and uneven. Harper poked at one with a fork, sighed dramatically. "Failure tastes like citrus." "You still have the filling," Lena said, picking up a spoon. "You can't ruin lemon cream." "Want a bet?" She dipped the spoon, took a bite, winced, then handed it to Lena. "Tell me it's edible." Lena hesitated, but tasted it. The flavor hit sharp and sweet, imperfect but alive. She swallowed, nodding slowly. "It's not terrible." Harper leaned against the counter, watching her closely. "That's high praise coming from you." Lena smiled again despite herself. Their eyes met across the flickering candlelight. Harper's gaze softened, losing its teasing edge. The storm outside grew louder, rain drumming against the glass, but the world inside had narrowed to this kitchen, to the smell of sugar and lemon and the sound of shallow breaths. Harper spoke first, her tone quiet, almost hesitant. "You ever think about that night?" Lena didn't need to ask which one. The question itself made her heart tighten. "Sometimes," she admitted. "Sometimes." Lena looked at her hands, then back at Harper. "More than I want to." Harper stepped closer, slow, deliberate, as if afraid to break something invisible. The candlelight caught the corner of her jaw, the curve of her lips, the slight tremor in her fingers. "I didn't mean to mess things up," she said softly. I say stupid things." "You don't," Lena said. "You just say honest things too fast." They were standing too close now. Lena could feel the warmth from Harper's skin, could smell the faint sweetness of vanilla still clinging to her. The sound of the storm faded beneath the rush of her heartbeat. Harper's voice dropped even lower. "Do you still think I was joking?" Lena shook her head. "No, not anymore." For a breath, nothing moved. Then Harper reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind Lena's ear. The touch was light, almost unsure. "Then tell me what to do," she whispered. Lena's voice came out barely audible. "You don't need me to tell you." Harper hesitated for a fraction of a second, then leaned in. The first kiss was tentative, like testing the depth of water. Lena froze, not because she wanted to stop it, but because every sense seemed to sharpen at one: the scent of lemon, the warmth of Harper's palm against her cheek, the faint tremor of her breath. When they parted, the silence that followed felt fragile. Harper's eyes were wide, uncertain, afraid she had gone too far. Lena exhaled slowly, her lips tingling. "You taste like sugar," she murmured. Harper laughed under her breath, a sound half relief, half disbelief. "You taste like something I should have found sooner." It would have been easy to stop there, to step back and pretend nothing had changed. But neither moved. The distance between them vanished again as Harper kissed her once more, firmer this time, less questioning. Lena's hand found the edge of the counter for balance, the cool surface grounding her as everything else tilted. They moved without plan, without words. The candle flame wavered, throwing gold light across their faces. Lena's fingers slid into Harper's hair, soft and damp from the rain. Harper's hands rested at her waist, not pulling, just holding, as if she feared the moment would disappear if she gripped too tightly. The thunder cracked again, shaking the glass, but neither flinched. It was as if the storm belonged to them now. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Harper pressed her forehead to Lena's, eyes closed. "Tell me this isn't a mistake," she whispered. Lena's answer came quiet but steady. "It's not." Something in Harper's expression loosened, a wall giving way. She smiled faintly, and the fear in her eyes faded into something warmer. "Good," she said. "Because I don't think I could take it back." They stayed like that, caught between laughter and silence, between what they were and what they might be. The candle burned lower, its wax spilling onto the counter. Outside, the storm began to soften, the thunder drifting farther away, the rain turning into a whisper. Later, they sat on the floor, wrapped in the faint glow of the dying flame. Harper pulled the tray closer, breaking off a piece of the failed tart. "Here," she said, offering it. "The night deserves dessert." Lena took a bite, grinning as the crust crumbled in her mouth. Still tragic. Maybe tragedy just means it's worth remembering. Lena looked at her, the light tracing the shape of her smile, and thought there was nothing tragic about this at all. When the electricity returned, the light flickered on suddenly, bright and intrusive. They both blinked, momentarily disoriented. The room looked different under fluorescent bulbs, smaller, too real. Harper laughed first, covering her eyes. "Well, reality's back." Lena reached out and turned the switch off again, letting the darkness return. "Not yet," she said softly. They stayed in the dimness, letting the quiet stretch. Harper rested her head on Lena's shoulder. The world outside hummed again, but the apartment felt still, suspended between storm and calm. Harper whispered something then. Barely a breath. You don't have to be careful with me. Lena tilted her head, brushing her lips against Harper's hair. I'm not careful, she murmured. I'm just late. Harper smiled, eyes still closed. Late's fine. I waited. The candle went out soon after, leaving them in darkness, yet neither moved to fix it. The night had already found its own kind of light, quiet and real. In the distance, the rain began to fade completely, replaced by the steady rhythm of city sounds returning. Inside that small apartment, everything had changed. The tension, the jealousy, the confusion, they had all melted into something softer, something that tasted like the sweetness of a half-burnt tart and the afterglow of courage. When Harper finally spoke again, her voice was calm, certain. You know, I never cared about what girls taste like. Lena smiled into the dark. No, Harper whispered. I just wanted to know what you did. And for the first time in months, Lena didn't need to answer with words. The storm outside was gone, but inside, something new had just begun to rise in its place, steady and unstoppable, like morning light after rain. The storm had washed the city clean. By morning, the sky glowed pale blue, and the air smelled like new beginnings. The apartment felt quieter than usual, almost fragile, as if a single sound could break the calm that hovered over every surface. Lena stirred first. The soft rhythm of rainwater dripping from the roof faded into silence. Her eyes opened to the faint light spilling across the floor. For a moment, she didn't move. Harper lay beside her on the couch, still half asleep, one arm slung loosely over her waist, her breathing steady. The blanket had fallen halfway to the floor. Lena watched the rise and fall of Harper's chest, unsure whether to stay or slip away before the weight of reality returned. She didn't move. Something about the stillness felt sacred. The world outside was waking up again, but here, time stretched thin and forgiving. She traced a line along Harper's forearm with her eyes, memorizing the freckles, the faint bruise of a camera strap mark, the quiet vulnerability in her posture. The night hadn't been a dream, yet it felt unreal, as if the walls themselves had witnessed something too intimate to speak of. Harper murmured softly and turned toward her. Her hair brushed against Lena's collarbone, warm and ticklish. Lena froze, then smiled in spite of herself. Harper blinked awake, confusion crossing her face before she remembered where she was. The moment recognition hit, her cheeks flushed. Morning, she said, her voice rough from sleep. Morning, Lena answered, her tone gentle, careful. They looked at each other for a long moment. No words rushed in to fill the space. It wasn't awkward, only heavy with everything that had changed. Harper sat up slowly, rubbing her neck, glancing toward the window as if the sky might offer instructions. I didn't expect to actually sleep, she said quietly. You were exhausted, Lena replied. Harper smiled faintly. That's one way to explain it. Lena stood, wrapping the blanket around her shoulders. The kitchen clock blinked 8:03, still flashing from the power cut. She poured 2 glasses of water and handed one to Harper, who took it with a small nod of thanks. They drank in silence, the sound of clinking glass the only thing breaking the quiet. Harper set her glass down, fingers tracing the rim. So, she said finally, last night happened. Lena met her eyes. It did. Harper exhaled. And it wasn't just me imagining it? No. That's good, Harper said softly. Because I was terrified it was. Lena's heart tightened. Terrified. Yeah. Not because I regret it, Harper continued, but because it felt too right for something I wasn't supposed to want. Lena leaned against the counter, watching her carefully. Who said you weren't supposed to? I did. For years. Harper gave a small laugh that wasn't really a laugh. I told myself I knew what I liked, what I didn't. I built a whole version of me around it. And then you moved in, and suddenly that version didn't make sense anymore. The words hung between them like a confession. Lena's chest ached, but not from sadness. It was the ache of recognition, of hearing something she'd felt but never dared to name. You don't have to figure it all out now, Lena said gently. We don't have to name anything yet. Harper looked at her, searching her face for disbelief, finding none. You're too calm about this. I'm not, Lena said quietly. I'm terrified too. I just hide it better. Harper smiled again, a small, uneven smile that looked almost fragile. She reached out, her fingers brushing Lena's hand. The touch was tentative, a question wrapped in warmth. Lena didn't pull away. For a while, they stood like that, their hands barely touching, the morning light softening the edges of the world. The city hummed faintly in the background. The tension that had once filled the apartment had dissolved into something steadier, quieter, something that didn't need explanation. Later, Harper began to move around the kitchen, looking for something to do. She found flour, sugar, lemons left from the night before. I'm finishing those tarts, she said. Lena raised an eyebrow. You're still calling them tarts? They died in the storm. Then I'm resurrecting them, Harper said with mock solemnity, tying her hair up. New recipe, same soul. The smell of butter filled the air. Lena sat at the table, sketchbook open, pretending to work while watching Harper move. There was grace in her clumsiness, beauty in the focus that curved her shoulders forward. Every motion carried ease now, stripped of the guarded distance that had lingered for weeks. When the first batch came out, golden and imperfect, Harper placed one on a plate and slid it across the table. Taste this, she said, echoing the line that had once started everything. Lena took a small bite, the crust soft, the lemon sharp and bright. Better than last night, she said. Everything's better than last night's tarts. I wasn't talking about the food. The words slipped out before Lena could stop them. Harper blinked, surprised, then grinned slowly. You're learning to flirt. Don't get used to it, Lena muttered, hiding her smile. Harper leaned forward on her elbows. Too late. The air between them grew warm again, but softer now, laced with familiarity. It was no longer about uncertainty. It was about belonging. By noon, the apartment had changed. The candles were gone, the dishes clean, the light steady. Yet everything felt new. Harper printed a photo she'd taken weeks ago, a blurred shot of their kitchen in the morning light, and pinned it to the wall. Beneath it, she wrote in small letters, "For the way she looked at me when I wasn't watching." Lena saw it later and didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Days passed, and the world settled into a rhythm again, though nothing was quite the same. They still argued about dishes and lights, still teased each other over burnt toast or late alarms. But now there were smaller things that spoke louder. A touch lingering on a wrist. A smile across the couch. A look that said more than words could manage. Harper stopped avoiding quiet moments. Lena stopped pretending not to care. They built something out of the ordinary, steady and real. One afternoon, Lena came home to find a folded note on her desk. It wasn't long. Just a few words written in Harper's messy handwriting. Meet me on the roof at sunset. She climbed the narrow stairs to the top of the building, heart thudding. Harper was there, camera hanging from her neck, the wind playing with her hair. The sky burned orange and pink above the skyline. Beautiful, right? Harper said, raising her camera but not taking a photo. I wanted to show you this. Lena stepped closer, squinting against the light. You could have just opened the window. Too small for what I want to say. Lena turned to her, eyes curious. Then say it. Harper lowered the camera. You once told me light matters more than shadows. I didn't understand it until now. She paused, breathing in deeply. You made me see things differently. You made me see me differently. Lena's throat tightened. That's a lot to say over a sunset. Harper smiled. Then let me show you instead. She leaned in, kissed her gently, nothing urgent, nothing uncertain. The city spread out below them, glowing gold in the fading light. It felt less like a beginning and more like a continuation, a quiet promise that didn't need to be spoken. When they pulled apart, Harper rested her forehead against Lena's. So, she whispered, what do girls taste like? Lena laughed softly, her voice brushing the wind. Like everything that's supposed to be complicated but somehow makes sense. Harper grinned. Then I guess I'm finally starting to understand. The last of the sunlight faded, but neither of them moved. The sound of the city rose around them, distant and alive. Harper took one last picture, capturing the moment, the light, the stillness between them. Later that night, Lena found the printed photo taped to the fridge. Beneath it, Harper had scribbled in pen, "Some answers are meant to be felt, not explained." Lena stood there for a while, smiling at the words, feeling the truth of them settle deep inside her. The apartment hummed with quiet life. The air smelled faintly of lemon and rain. When Harper came up behind her and wrapped her arms around her waist, Lena didn't need to turn around. She already knew. This was what home was supposed to feel like, warm, imperfect, alive. Outside, the city pulsed with light, but inside, two hearts had found their rhythm again, steady and sure. And somewhere in that soft, shared silence, the question that had once started everything no longer needed an answer. Love doesn't always begin with certainty. Sometimes it starts with a question, whispered in the dark, carried by curiosity and courage. For Lena and Harper, that question became the spark that rewrote everything they thought they knew about themselves. It wasn't about definitions or labels, only about finding truth in someone's eyes and choosing to stay. The storm passed, the lights returned, and what remained was something real, something worth keeping. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself feel. This is She and She, where every story begins with a heartbeat.